Well, thank you so much, BFI Flair, for having us. This is a big moment.
A delight. Everyone is so nice here.
It's truly, and you love to hear your last name said like this, Rogers. So if anyone wants to come up later and say that to me, you're welcome. But we're here celebrating my bestie, Bowen Yang.
Hi.
Now, some of you may know, some of you may not. We host a podcast together. It's called Las Culturistas. And I know that we ask a question of every person that comes on our podcast.
Yes.
And that question is, what is the culture that made you say culture is for you? But by nature of us being hosts of that podcast, we never get asked that question. So I'm going to change it a little bit and direct it to you, Bo. Bowen Yang, what was the cinematic culture that made you say culture was for you to kick off this talk about your cinematic achievements?
Question. There are a lot of answers. There's like the basic answer, which is Titanic.
I knew you were gonna say it.
Because that set off so many things for us, where it was like our love of award shows.
Yes.
Like, it kicked off our love of award shows, our love of Celine Dion, our love of like
Miss Winslet,
our love of Leo, James Cameron. We're big Cameron heads.
Oh yeah, Fire and Ash coming this year if you haven't heard.
Avatar. So I'll say Titanic. Yeah.
So what was it about Titanic and a movie like that made you love movies? Was it that you saw yourself acting in them? Because you do so many things. You are a classic multi-hyphenate. Don't laugh at me.
Okay.
Treat me like a host.
I'm treating you like a host. This is bizarre that we're talking to each other.
It's so funny to ask him questions that I know the answers to.
Yeah.
But this is for y'all.
This is for y'all.
And everyone watching at home.
We're in a zoo enclosure.
So did you see yourself acting? Were you inspired to create? Like, when you're watching something like Titanic at a young age, I would imagine you were 6, 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say or articulate what it was about movies that was calling to you?
I just liked that it was mind-blowing to me. I had to like turn to my parents and be like, so are those two in love in real life? Because they had sex in the car, and so they have to be like in love with each other.
Yeah.
Like, it just, I don't know. There is something really beautiful about artifice to me. Like, there's something kind of amazing about faking something. Which is not to say that like movies are pure fakery, but I feel like it blew my mind that it was like they didn't have to sink a real boat to get that on camera, you know? Like,
The introduction to movie magic.
Yeah. And you know what? And then another answer to the question is probably Jackie Chan films, but Rush Hour specifically because of the blooper reel at the end.
Oh, iconic blooper. Rush Hour 2's blooper.
Rush Hour 2's blooper reel. He had gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that. But it was the Rush Hour films and like old Jackie Chan films in the 80s did this, where he would play the bloopers and the outtakes, and that was a way of demystifying movie making too, where it was like, oh, like they're shooting on film. There's that one Rush Hour 2 blooper where he's yelling at the guy who calls Chris Tucker's phone.
Yeah.
He's like, you're wasting film. Like, we're shooting a movie. And I was like, oh, that's how you make, like, it just, I feel like movies like that at that age were very, just instructive on how it was done. But it wasn't that I saw myself being in them. It just seemed so fun. Award shows seemed so fun. It was Billy Crystal coming out and doing all that stuff at the Oscars that made it seem so, I don't know, pageanty.
Right. And I also remember, just relating to what you're saying, for me it looked like, I think at that young age, like, maybe not explicitly, but intrinsically knowing that you were queer. I remember looking in that room at the Oscars and seeing a community of people that maybe I could belong to because I didn't feel like I belonged where I was. So perchance that was a part of it too. And that's the one and only time I've said that word. You have to understand, I'm trying to sound smart, Rogers. But just to speak to that idea of community, because I think, and if any of you have seen The Wedding Banquet last night, we're lucky enough to be at the screening.
Thanks for coming.
This is yet another example of you being involved in an amazing ensemble.
Yeah.
And I know from knowing you from way back, you started in improv comedy, and that is by nature ensemble work. And so I wonder if you could speak to, especially at this festival, BFI Flair, that idea of community and what that means to you now and historically.
I mean, this is a crazy thing that happened last night. Speaking of community, speaking of like where we came from,
Right.
we got out of the screening last night for Wedding Banquet, and we ran into our old friend from college, Jenny Donahue, Welsh legend Jenny Donahue. But she went to NYU with us, and she did sketch in Matt's sketch group.
Yeah.
But we would all hang out together, and it drove this home for me, where it was like, you know, I would be like nothing without the people that I met in college, and that I met along the way at SNL, or just we were like pounding the pavement. Matt and I were just like really struggling for a while.
The pavement hated to see us coming.
The pavement hated to see us coming, but we would like all those like I kind of really it's easy to do now, but I really romanticized the time in our lives when we would have to get up at like 5 a.m. to go to like a school in New Jersey to do like a story pirate show, which is this like children's nonprofit in New York, in LA, and like that was like the first comedy community that I felt outside of college, and I don't know, you just you get all of this like emotional and talent residue, like you just pick up on all of these things from different people, and that's like the only thing that defines what I do, is like being among other people, and it's fun to be at BFI Flair because it feels like that's the whole spirit of the festival.
Yeah, it's a great community spirit here. We spoke to Kate Blanchett on our podcast this week, and one of the most heartening things I think that she said that I hold with me is we asked her what drives her to choose a project, and she was talking about how it's often the people.
Yeah.
And you really do, the more and more you proceed, you realize that it's about the experience of collaborating. And so as your collaborator, I it's wild to be here, and I'm so proud of you, because like to get to this point where we're gonna look at pieces of your work, and you already have like a body of work, which feels crazy because we do feel young, but we're gonna look at some of these, you know, pieces of your filmography, as it were.
Okay.
And we're gonna start.
Get ready for a lot of yelling.
Yeah, no, stop. We actually, we really tried to find clips where he didn't yell. But, you know, I think obviously you might be best known for Saturday Night Live, but we're focusing on the film work of Bowen
Sure.
Yang, and we're gonna start right now with a clip from Nicholas Stoller's Bros.
Yelling. Did I yell or did I yell?
No, that was not yelling. That was intentive instruction.
Yes. Oh,
That was
thank you.
there was a little bit of yelling, but you're famous for your yelling.
This is what I'm saying. It's
He's one of the best screamers in the business.
So nice. And you know, people are like really conservative and precious with their screaming voices. I'm learning as the longer I work at SNL. Like I always thought Lady Gaga was one of our great screamers, and she's like, I'm saving it. And I'm like, yes, please save it. But I'll never skimp on a scream.
I'm never worried about you when you're screaming. I'm never like, that's gonna hurt him. It's very rehearsed, studied, and more.
Thank you. I can count on one hand the number of times I've like lost my voice.
Yeah, you don't lose your instrument.
What about you?
Well, I don't know. This isn't about me. So here's the thing. Now, all my love to Billy Eichner, who wrote the film famously, but I know that wasn't scripted. So bringing in your improv background into there, in a movie like that, where you're just around so many comedic icons, and that ensemble is also great. Bros is hilarious. It's a great film. And I wonder, what is it about that kind of environment that you get to? Like, what does it feel like? Is it encouraging of your improv? Do you find that when you step onto set a lot, they know your history and your skill with this, so you feel comfortable, or was that a special set for that?
That was a special set for that, because I feel like we probably think that there's like an appropriate echelon of entertainment to just like be stupid in.
Yeah.
Where like we get to improvise, like, you know, I get to improvise on like a family sitcom with like Awkwafina. Like there's like the stakes are really well laid there, and like it's not that like anyone thinks that like the show is frivolous. It's just a fun comedy show. But for that, it's like that's a Nick Stoller film. It's Billy Eichner. It's people who like have spent years perfecting word for word what is on the page, and that's why like okay, this is my pet peeve personally is when they go, yeah, and just make it up, and I go, well, no, like this is this is like it's a disservice to the writer who literally, like I said, has spent a long time working out what the order and the sequence of words is. Like, I don't take that lightly. And it's like, it's a thing that people come to SNL with sometimes where they're like, okay, and we just like riff. I'm like, no, we actually read what's on the page. Because someone stayed up until 4 a.m. writing this. And whether or not it's delirious, if it makes any sense at all, you just have to like commit to the text.
Also tough to improvise on a live comedy show.
Yeah.
Not a lot of room for guesswork there.
Because for that it's like they got to figure out when to cut, and it's a technical thing. But for something like Bros, I was just like, no, like Nick Stoller is one of our great comedic directors in the last decade.
Absolutely.
And Billy is someone who like really took it so beautifully. Just took the sort of stakes of it so seriously in a way that I really admired.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not gonna like ruin this for you. But only add. Yeah, it was just additive. It was none of it was replacing anything. So that's been an interesting thing to learn, is to reconcile like this perception that like as a comedic actor you have to be off the cuff and it has to flow out of you, but also I think something that like defines a skill in that is just to like interpret what is like on the page.
Because I would imagine it's on the page and then you come in with your skills with this character idea and you elevate what it is with what you bring, which is your ability to commit and also your ability to see beyond what's there and heighten it with what is, I'm sure, your improv of the theme park ride.
Yeah.
I know that was you.
Oh, girl.
That's my girl. I'm proud of him.
Oh, stop.
I want to go on that ride, quite frankly. Okay, so that obviously came out in 2022, which ended up being quite a summer for queer film.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to be together in the ensemble, and this is a word, ensemble, that will keep coming up, which is something I think we're both very proud of Fire Island.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see a clip from Fire Island now. This is Andrew On's Fire Island. This is a lovely scene with Bowen Yang and writer Joel Kim Booster. We could do an hour on just this movie alone.
I know.
But
one thing I will say is, I think this is what is going to define my career on screen. Glasses continuity.
He's so
himself. Either it's down here and then it cuts and then it's like up here. You know what I mean?
And this is why I love working with you, is because I will never see shit like that, and I know you're watching that only seeing shit like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, this, obviously, I was there. My character's probably in the house below them fucking off somewhere. But obviously, this was fun to shoot.
Yes.
But it was also grueling to shoot.
Yeah.
And I do use the word grueling because, I mean, we were there together, and I found that for me, it was actually bizarre and very meta to shoot a film with not only extremely close friends, because, you know, Bowen and I have been best friends for 16 years. We've been very close with Joel Kim Booster for about 11 or 12. And then we made extremely close new friends on that movie, and things really solidified. But with that, and stepping into this very meta experience of shooting Fire Island and trying to capture this experience that we still struggle with.
Yeah.
I saw you go through some ups and downs. And I wonder if you could speak to, and in retrospect, sort of try to get across what the totality of that experience was.
Sure. This is my naivete, is that I thought this would be an easy breezy shoot, that it kind of didn't mean anything emotionally, that the characters were based on me and Joel. So it's a sort of reimagining of Pride and Prejudice, but it's grafted onto like this vacation comedy of going to Fire Island, but it's about like class and race and all these things. And the characters were originally named Joel and Bowen in the script. And I was like, great, no problem.
And I was like, they cannot be called that.
Yeah. Matt was like, I remember I was like on the train in New York, and then you texted me, you were like, are you sure you want these names to be the names like for the rest of time in this film? And I was like, oh, I guess it didn't occur to me that that would be like a little prickly. And then during the shooting of it, it was this meta thing where my character was like processing this rejection that he faces every day, and he was processing like the way he did not feel desirable and like the gay hegemony of like the modern day. And I thought that I had like outpaced that in my own life. I thought that like, oh, look at me, like I'm doing pretty well, and I can sort of cope with the fact that like, you know, this is that like I'm navigating gay dating in a very specific way. And playing Hallie, playing that character in Fire Island really just like made me examine all of it and like turn every single piece around in my, and just like really evaluate things. And it was hard. And I'm much more of a softie than I think I initially might have been with this. It's like, anytime like an actor is being an actor, like in press or something, I give them grace now, because I'm like, yes, I have no idea what that was like for you.
Yeah.
I believe you. I take you at your word for how difficult this was. But even for something like that, like a fun, light, easy on its feet comedy, like if it has any weight to it in terms of like, oh, you are a character who is feeling bad about themselves, then that will in some way penetrate. But I mean, I loved that so much, and we'll keep saying ensemble, and even, I mean, I'll save this for the end when we talk about Wedding Banquet, I guess. But I'm just like, I might be doing myself a disservice by saying this, but like, I would rather be in an ensemble than like lead anything any day. You know what I mean? It's just so much. It's just such a better distribution of weight. It's like,
and just in terms of strenuous workload,
Yeah.
and emotional holding of the
Yeah.
center, it's tough.
And we've had friends who like have had to lead and carry something, and they talk about how it feels like insurmountable. It feels like this like really, like the pressure is real to have the whole thing rest on one person's shoulders. And I don't think I'm built for that in my 30s. I think I'm like, I think I want to go home at like 6 p.m. and cook a nice stew. Even though
He
it's
does
summer.
love stew.
I love stew.
This man deserves a personal life.
Yeah.
I've been saying it. But
anyway.
I mean, and just to speak a little bit more about this movie, because you know, it's Fire Island. I remember one of the things that weighed on me, and the reaction that I think a lot of us had when we first saw it, which is that sort of dysmorphic moment of seeing
Yeah.
yourself not only just that big, or however you're seeing yourself through the lens, but also the knowledge that this movie was not just what you're saying about you being one of the two leads of that film. It was called Fire Island.
Mm-hmm.
It was representing this really monumental place that occupies such a special zone in queer culture.
Yeah.
And it was going to be streaming. That meant it was going to be accessible for a lot of people to see it.
Right.
So I guess in terms of visibility, both with this movie and in you being one of the most visible queer performers, can you speak to like how you sort of interact with and conquer that pressure?
Oh, I don't think I've conquered it.
Well, like your attempts to do so.
Yeah.
Or how you just like, you know, file that away as something that you can't possibly give a fuck about anymore.
I think it's that. I think I filed it away as that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. We're in this really like funhouse mirror-y business. That's essentially what we do.
Yeah.
Anyone who works in film is just like designing a gorgeous mirror.
Yeah.
And it's not like my emotions around looking into the mirror are not necessarily the film's problem.
Right.
You know? Like I remember when I got the call that I was getting on the cast of SNL, I only had like 1 week off in that summer, and like I was just gonna go on vacation, and then I went to this resort, and I snuck a little bit of LSD on the plane. But I was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can, like what is me being on this show, what is that gonna look like? That feels crazy. I can't envision it.
One thing. Did you sneak LSD on the plane and take the LSD?
Not on the plane.
Because I can't imagine being on LSD.
No. Certain, top 3 worst places to take acid was on a flight. But I was at the resort, and then I was on the beach, and then that's where I took the LSD.
Yeah.
And then kind of got over that idea by just watching sketches on my phone.
Uh-huh.
And I think it was a Stefan. And I was I hallucinated myself as Stefan. And I was oh, I see it now. This, no problem.
Yeah. Stefan was a trailblazer.
And I got to tell Bill that. I got to tell Bill Hader that. That was fun. He was oh, okay. But anyway, I feel it's just this mental blockade, and everyone deals with it. Speaking of our interview with Kate Blanchett, I feel she was hinting at that too. She was alluding to this idea of I don't know, she's I have no process, I have no skill when it comes to this, and you're you have 2 Oscars. What are you talking about?
Correct.
Yeah. So there's some dysphoria no matter what if you are self-perceiving. It's an unnatural, the human brain, nothing in the hunter-gatherer era of humanity has ever. There's been no natural selection for this thing.
Yeah, they didn't have dysmorphia.
They did. It's just, I don't know, the cavemen weren't drawing themselves and then being
Pretty hurts. Wait, that's a good sketch. I've been pitching you sketch ideas.
I love it.
What about this for a sketch? It's been 7 years. No, I just, with Fire Island specifically.
Yeah, you talk, because wait, I want to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, I mean, I think as you were speaking about having to inhabit this stuff, it's one thing when you're watching a movie and you're reading a script or whatever and you go through it once. And then for some reason it's a surprise when you get to shooting it and you have to do this stuff again and again and again and again and get notes about the way that you've performed this stuff that's very personal.
Yeah.
And so I remember feeling so safe with Andrew on.
Oh, so safe.
And we're going to speak in a second about you working with him on the Wedding Banquet, which was, again, it's beautiful, it's brilliant. You're going to be so happy when you watch it. But speaking to your first time working with him, which was on this film, just can you talk about your relationship with him and how he held you through that?
Oh my gosh. I feel he was someone who did not burst my bubble with the idea that this is going to be hard for you. Mm-hmm. I think he let me arrive at that myself. And then once I did arrive there, it's he was sort of there already as my greeter, It's I got dropped off and he was there to be hi, let's take my hand.
Lovely, lovely. That's what he does. Those are his words.
Lovely.
We were with Nicola Coughlan last night and she was talking about working with him.
On Bridgerton.
Yeah. And she said, he comes over and he goes, after a tough scene, he goes, lovely, lovely. And I had a literal flashback to, I had a couple scenes in the movie where I was, it was tough.
It's tough.
And he comes over very gingerly, lovely, lovely. And I felt very held by him, I wanted to really ask you that because your character needs to be held.
Yes, he
and
needs
you
to be
needed
held.
to be held. I remember it was hard.
There was a close-up shot of me on the ferry in that movie. Where I shed a single Demi Moore Sandra Oh tear. And I was I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this. And then whatever, we got a couple takes where I was producing fluid, but was not the money shot. And it was not but I think, he just wanted, he wanted it to push it to the place where he wanted it to go, and this is a sign of great directing. He doesn't move on until he has what he wants. And he came over and he said to me, "You're looking back at the island, and you're mourning the person that you once were." Ooh. I was fuck. And then we was like, and then we were rolling, and then, boom, just like straight shot down. Like he just is so poetic, but also has such a technical skill. Working with him on the Wedding Banquet, which we'll get to later, was so special because it was the first time it was like his writing and his words, and he's one of the best.
Yeah.
He's one of the best people we have, and the dysphoria stuff. Well, I was talking about this with Lily yesterday, Lily Gladstone, where we were like, oh my, that was her first time watching it with the crowd. And then we were both talking about how, like, the first time you watch it, just in any context, that's just you sort of cleansing your own expectation of what you thought this movie would turn out to be. Because you're like, you were there, you did it, you know what takes you had, and then you see the final product, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna feel something about the choices that were made in my stead, and then that is always gonna be a hurdle you have to jump through. And the second time you watch it, or the third time you watch it, you just see it for what it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's, to hear her say that made me go, oh, like she was talking about that she felt that with certain women, where she was like, I just knew there were different takes, and it was a really weird experience watching certain women for the first time. I was like, you were perfect in that.
Right.
What are you talking about? She was like, no, it's just a thing that you never get over as an actor.
And the fact that you have to marry the idea that it isn't yours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's actually for all of you. You know what I mean? It's and anyone that's a viewer. And once you get there, I do find it to be easier.
Yes.
Like you have your first like surly time watching it, like you sob after you see yourself. I don't have it on screen. And then all of a sudden it's not about you anymore. You have your stupid actor bullshit. And then it becomes this beautiful thing that's a shared experience.
Yes.
I totally connect with that.
Can I reveal to the audience, like Matt and I had a similar experience watching Fire Island for the first time, where we were both completely dysphoric about our own performances, and then Matt literally said the words to me, and this is crazy to me, because he's like the most talented, resplendent, charming person I know. He goes, I don't have it on screen. And I go, Matt, that is such a crock of bullshit.
Well.
And so, like, but it made me realize, like, this is a kind of a universal thing, because, again, our brains are not meant to process things this way.
I mean, I'll bring her up for a third time, but that'll be it, because rule of threes, and also it's getting annoying. But Cate Blanchett sharing that. No, but like honestly, like we're all film lovers here. Is there anyone better than Cate Blanchett?
Literally.
If you think so, don't answer, because I will fight. But for her,
There's a guy in a Michelle Yeoh T-shirt in
and
front
we
of
love,
row.
and but we love you.
He beat her out for the Tar Oscar.
Yes.
She beat her out for the Tar Oscar.
And we're gonna fight. No, we love. But hearing her say that the insecurity simply never goes away, and the self-critique never goes away, is actually very freeing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that being, I mean, will we call Fire Island your first real movie?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
I felt like I was, like the growth edges were going out.
What a great movie to learn that on.
Yeah.
Because it's such a maximum extreme example of that.
Totally. I was playing a version of myself. It was in this very like emotionally tricky place, Fire Island. Like anyone who's been there, it's like no matter how hegemonically amazing you look, it's like, you know, everyone feels insecure there.
Yeah, and to speak of, you know, hegemonically amazing looking people and maximalism and extremes, we're about to show a clip from one of the pop culture moments of last year. This is John M. Chu's Wicked.
Great. 2 seconds.
They rise up out of their chairs. I mean, this was and remains such a moment in culture.
Oh my God.
And I have to say, even in watching it just now, the theme park essence of it, like, can you just talk about interacting with the sets, the sheer movie stardom that we're talking about here, the bigness of it, and the expanse of the filming?
I think this is a stroke of John M. Chu's genius, which is that the bigness never weighed it down in any regard. Like, down to, I mean, of course, like, Cynthia woke up on the days that she had to do Defying Gravity and was like, okay, I better really deliver. Or Ari had to wake up on the mornings of Popular and was like, I gotta deliver. But, like, otherwise, it was easy, breezy, beautiful cover girl.
Yeah.
It was
Cover girls.
Cover girls. But I will say, The craziest prank anyone has ever pulled on me is for John M. Chu to be like, okay, now Bowen, just do a fun one, just like riff, ad lib. Just like,
On Wicked.
On Wicked. And I was like, okay, they're not gonna use this. Like, I'm not gonna like outdo Winnie Holtzman and Dana Fox. Like, no way. And so I would do, like, we ad-libbed and Roll Here Often. We ad-libbed, like, all of these things, like, in the shiz meeting, in the classrooms, in the, like, at the Ozdust. And then John used all of my ad-lib
Yeah,
takes.
of course he did.
But I'm like, but that's another thing of it belying the bigness. It's like, I was tricked into believing that they wouldn't use it because of how big it was. Because like I would just fly in on a Monday and be like, all right, like let's do it. And then it all ligates and it all connects so seamlessly.
Yeah.
Like there might be some people who watch the movie and like get taken out of it that when they see me, they're like, oh, what's he doing there? But I feel like overall, like that's another great ensemble.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I know you also made such amazing connections there.
Yes.
And such important friendships there, which I think probably speaks to the fact that everyone was very passionate about getting it right.
Yes.
So I wonder if you could speak to the joy and the intent with, you know, that you bring with your fandom for something like this, because I know Ariana Grande is basically, you know, biblical about Wicked, and you're no slouch either. You love this musical, like everyone has such a passion for it, including the director.
Yes.
So,
I mean, what I was daunted by was just the biblical sort of like precision and just the passion that everybody was bringing to it. And I was just like, I remember going to my first choreo rehearsal and being like, they're gonna tear me to shreds. Like this is like so
you
not
were
what I
great
do.
at dancing.
Thank you. But it was an immediate sort of like shields down thing, because it was just everybody understanding that like we're all in over our heads in making this film.
Right.
Everyone except John M. Chu.
Right.
He was the only person who needed to be like above water with it and steer the ship.
Yeah.
And the rest of us were like kind of out to sea. The metaphor is a little weird here, I'm sorry, but you know, like Ari had her days where I feel like she wasn't totally sure, and that's not like too revelatory. It's just like you're not gonna have. It was a 160-day shoot.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have good days and bad days, and we all had the full spectrum. But I feel like we all wanted to get it right in this way that because people kept saying like, this is Endgame. Oh my God, yeah, it's Endgame.
It's only going to be a movie once or twice, rather.
Or twice, rather. Yeah. And we're so grateful for that.
For good.
For good. But people who had worked on the show on the original like previews, were like, "This is Endgame." Stephen Aremus, like Stephen Schwartz, were like, "This is the Endgame," and we're like, "Oh shit, yeah." But again, it didn't totally like, it did not paralyze us in any way, because we were like, "This is going to be different," and so it should be something that is distinct in its own flavor, and that's why. Like, I remember being at the London premiere for Wicked, and I sat next to Dana Fox, who iconic writer, one of the best. Worked with Winnie Holtzman to update it, or to sort of adapt it to film. And I remember texting her during shooting. I was like, John's having me improvise a lot, and I feel like that's rude to you. And she was like, no, I'm sure it's great. And then she sat next to me at the London premiere, and she would like look over at me and be like, why aren't you laughing at your own stuff? And I'd be like, oh, Dana, this is just my own disease. Like, I can't watch myself, whatever, for the first time especially. And she was like, and then she sent me this long text the week after being like, I know, I totally understand where your head's at with that, but I just want to say that like you improvising all those really frivolous things, those stupid things, that was so important to the film, because the whole story of Wicked is so earnest, so like deeply, like to the point of like, if it was mishandled, it could be corny and the audience could be totally out of me, like, okay, whatever.
Course, yeah.
Like, it needs some kind of archness and stupidity, and like you bring that in a way that was like such a compliment to me.
Well, we need the thing about that scene is we actually do need that scene, because we need to understand Fierro's impact on the community there. And you're not just going to get it from Glinda, because Glinda is a Fiyero herself. You know what I mean? And so we do need that moment from you, and you perform it so well. And Roll Here Often is a Bowen Yang improv line, and one of the biggest laugh lines in the movie, which you could say about almost everything that you say.
No.
The last question I want to ask about, do not do that. My lifelong pursuit is to get him to take a compliment. Is for him to just say thank you without repeated no. I'll get there. But
by the end of this.
The last thing I want to ask about Wicked is, obviously you go there, it's a blockbuster, it's similar to Fire Island, but if you made the queer community the entire world, that everyone's going to see it. But I don't think that people were necessarily thinking it was going to be a critical and awards moment.
Yeah.
So now that it's reached this area where you're up there performing with 2 Oscar-nominated, who knows, maybe this year Oscar-winning performances, just to speak to the way that something commercial can become something so artistically beautiful,
but also politically trenchant.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like Adam McKay had this whole thing about how it's crazy that Wicked is out in the world doing so well when it's like a story about like racism, careerism, fascism, all these things, and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, like it is kind of miraculous that it's out there. I mean, that's like one of the great strokes of luck in my life.
What do you think it was, like, if you could speak to whether it was John M. Chu's direction, what do you think it was, and how do you think in the future, I know this is a big question, but we can achieve commercial success and, playing to everybody, while also giving something beautiful and moving and important?
I think a lot of it has to do with both the hyper specificity and the fantastical element of it. You can graft onto that story a million different ideas and a million different political angles. Like I'm like, oh my God, like, yeah, the only reason the wizard has power is because he creates problems for other people, and that's what everybody does. Like it's like I'm still such a fucking college student when it comes to this film. I'm like, wow, they really did that. But I think the way you kind of achieve that is probably by like making something not allegorical, but like you let the audience arrive at that themselves, and then that feels like even more emotionally connective to them, where they're like, oh my God, I love this thing so much with such a fervor with all these other people because we've all kind of had the same journey to this love. You know what I mean?
Journey to this love.
Yes.
Title of ep. Well, I love that. Yeah. And it's obviously ongoing as Wicked for Good hits theaters later this year. Can you say anything about it before we move to the Wedding Banquet?
There's a gaggy wedding in that.
Oh.
In Wicked Part 2. But you've seen there's like that clip of Glinda walking down the aisle.
Yeah.
That's a gaggy
all of y'all
moment.
are internet freaks. I can smell it on you. Okay, so gaggy wedding.
Gaggy wedding.
Now, speaking of gaggy weddings, I am so happy and pleased to be able to share with you all a clip from a film that is, opened up this festival, BFI Flair. This is the new one from Andrew On. This is The Wedding Banquet. It honestly makes me emotional as a friend of yours because you have this beautiful scene with her forever.
I know.
Isn't that lovely?
Oh my God. If you haven't seen the movie, Yoon Yo-jung, I feel like she and Jun Chen really run away with the whole thing. What a soulful actor. I was telling you, right? Like, soulful. Just
soulful, funny, holds so much, does so much, is capable of conveying so much. I want to ask about just interacting with her as a performer, as a fellow performer. Just tell us about that day and tell us about that scene work.
God, this is what a fucking legend she is. 3 takes.
Really?
The whole movie she was like, I'm not doing more than 3.
Now, is that can you surmise that that's about her, energetically being like, I give what I give, or is that just what do you think that was? Because I know that's not how you prefer to work.
No,
You want to get it right.
I want to get it right, but I mean, maybe it's like a way of. That's her very clever way of like limiting her own parameters, and I mean that in terms of like, I'm only doing 3 takes. I better make every single take count.
Got it.
You know what I mean? And she's like the Meryl Streep of Korea, which is like a crude way of putting it, but she's like the fucking legend.
Oh, yeah.
Of Korea. Like, just there's a scene where we shoot a Korean wedding, and it was a lot of Korean background, a lot of Korean crew, and she just sucks the air out of it. Like, she walks in and everyone just straightens up, and it's Yoon Jung, and that scene was really, really, really nice, really special. One of my favorite days on that shoot, and she was not gonna maybe do the film. She got the script, and she wasn't sure if she was gonna do it, and then her son was like, Mom, I think you should give this another read. I'm gay. She already like this. He did not come out in that moment.
I was like, you should do this film because, well, I'm gay. Gag. Gagged her a bit.
That he was gay, and I think they had their, I don't know the specifics, but it seems like they had their own really beautiful journey in terms of, coming together in that, and now he's married, and then one time I was in Williamsburg before we shot this movie, and then some drunk gay guy came up to me and was like, "You're doing a movie with my mother-in-law." I was like, "What?" She's like, "You're doing a movie with Yoon Jung, and I'm married to her son, and you're doing a movie with her." I was like, "Okay." And it was
This would be
startling.
an amazing update character. Yoon Jung's gay son-in-law in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
She's my mother.
And my mom. And that was how I first heard about it. I was like, oh my God, like,
wow.
Yoon Jung. And, but apparently
they want you to do it.
No, I'm not gonna do it. Lauren. But her son was like, this is really meaningful, just in terms of like, your personal journey with me, and also, he was a huge fan of Fire Island.
Oh, wow.
He was a huge fan of the movie Fire Island. He was like, this director's great, and Bowen's really funny. And really funny because I only say that because she kept saying that to me during filming. She was like, "You're not that funny." I was like, I know.
Well, honestly.
Like, I know.
But the movie is similar to Fire Island. I mean, I do feel like it's obviously not a sequel, but it's like spiritually, it lives in the same world in many ways. Obviously,
Yeah.
Andrew has his voice and his tone as a filmmaker, which is, there's a depth. And it is running through this entire film. And obviously, one of the other, kindred things between these films are the ensemble.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful ensemble, and it's great work together. And you really do get the sense that this is a family. And while I know we spoke about Fire Island and, so many elements of that, one thing we didn't touch on with that, which I'll ask about this movie, is creating the family. Mm-hmm. So if you could speak to that.
I mean, the family was this, like, it was bound together by this thing that Andrew is so good at, which is, someone yesterday was saying that the common thread in his films is that it's about the ways people are kind to each other, which is so beautiful. I could cry. But I remember when before we started Fire Island, he sat us all down. He sat like the people who were in like our house, in like the Bennett household. He sat us all down and he just had us go around and talk about favorite vacations we've taken and like the people we went on vacation with, and it was just this beautiful anecdotal sort of trade-off with everybody, and the way he kind of facilitated that with this was just talking about weddings and talking about how we feel about marriage and how we feel about parenthood and how we feel about all of these things. And then what we happened upon organically as a cast was we would watch in between takes. We would go to this like green room, and like I had linked the Apple TV to my account, and we had watched the show Couples Therapy, and which is a show that Matt introduced me to.
Queen Orna
Garnering. If you haven't seen it, it's fantastic. But we would watch this together, and then we would just always pause as like a cast and just break down these dynamics and be like, oh wow, like this person reminds me of this narcissistic boyfriend that I had, and like all of these things. And it was our way of just sharing so much with each other in such a quick, structured amount of time, like, you know, way where by the time like cameras rolled, it was just like, oh, we know a lot about each other already within like a week, and this just feels so effortless and turnkey.
One of my favorite, very small scenes in the film, and I believe this speaks to one of my favorite elements of Fire Island, is Andrew captures B-roll. Like he gets atmosphere, and there's no other way to say it other than he captures existence in this way that is not scripted.
Yeah.
For example, like the scene I'm talking about in this movie is you're in the garden and Lily's in the garden.
Yeah.
And Lily Gladstone sprays Bowen with water, and he makes this Bowen sound like ah! Like, and it lightens your character. It brings like a humanity forth and a joy forth, and you understand their relationship just in that moment.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of all the shots in Fire Island of just like a deer jumping on the boardwalk and this beautiful texture that he gives.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you can speak to that, just like how Andrew, he really encourages just the being.
Yes. Well, you know what Andrew's really good at? You know what I've realized is an Andrew on feature? Is he in the audience, by the way?
Is he here?
No. Okay. All right.
Fuck us.
Not that he needs to hear this. But,
No, we're pissed off.
Andrew is really good, and I didn't realize that this was something that I like have always wanted to do in a film, is to have like a lingering stare at the ceiling while I'm in bed. He does. Hong Chow does that in Driveways.
Yeah.
And like there's a lot of shots of Hong Chow in Driveways just kind of like looking up at the ceiling while she's in bed. And like I have a couple of those in this. I'm like, yeah, that's fun. I feel like that qualifies as atmosphere. Like there's just like B-roll and special shots of props just like a garden hose and gloves just like on the lawn,
Yes.
which like shows you that like it's been abandoned, and that Lily's character, who's a gardener, has like left the house, or like an empty bird feeder that you've seen me in that same scene fill up, empty. It's like there's neglect and there's decay, and like the sort of the binding agent of this household is sort of like coming undone.
Yeah.
And it's all subtextual. It's all communicated within one frame. It's I mean that's he's so talented.
One of the biggest compliments I could give about this movie is I feel, even having only watched the movie once, that I could walk in that house and know where things are.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I
Like
love
I
that.
feel like I could go into the backyard and I would know how to get into the garage where you guys live, and the beautiful shot that ends the film of the house.
Yeah.
It's just so gorgeous. It's so well done. And not only is he incredibly good at what he does, but he's also incredibly good at romantic comedy.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite genres, and I know yours.
Yes.
And I think so many of our favorite genres.
Yes.
And so one thing I wanted to talk about is, just in speaking about Fire Island and in speaking about The Wedding Banquet, one sort of thing about both is, in Fire Island, you receive the monologue.
Yes.
Of James Scully. He gets off the boat. We encourage him to go chase down Bowen before he leaves Fire Island, and you have this receptive moment of receiving love.
Yeah.
And then in Wedding Banquet, no spoilers, I guess, but this is one of them. But there is a declaration of love that you give.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask about what went into grounding something that is so big. And in Fire Island, it's sort of called out, like you got to be big and stupid.
Right.
But in Wedding Banquet, like you do something big and stupid.
Yes.
But there isn't that moment where we're acknowledging that it's a big, stupid rom-com thing, and yet it still feels in the tone and in the world and
Totally.
earned. And so I wanted to know if you could speak about shooting that.
Yeah, I mean, that was a day that I was nervous about, for sure. And I was aware of the fact that it was like this reversal of what I had been accustomed to one time, but I liked that it was kind of like, and again, this won't give anything away, but it might sound a little vague. It was like kind of like enshrined in this like ceremony, which is like what the movie is also about. It's like about like these kind of arbitrary rituals that still mean something at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I liked that it had that coding to it, and then it gets a little subverted too. It's like I declare the love, and it gets like a little bit undercut.
A little undercut.
Yeah, and that's also like Andrew's talent too. It's like he knows the trope. He will dial it up to the max, and then he'll completely cut off the thread. It's like a rule of like writing and comedy too. It's like you pull a thread loose, and that's like the first thing. Then you yank it again, and that's the second beat. And then you cut the thread, and then you think it's over, and then you yank it one more time. And I feel like that's just like the way that Andrew kind of like sees structure, and it's very effective.
Yeah.
It's like an hour and 40-minute film. There are 6 different characters he has to juggle, but 6 arcs that are totally fulfilled, totally believable. It was a very, again, turnkey thing, and that's all on Andrew, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be in theaters, which is so exciting.
Yep.
It was really a beautiful moment to watch it with an audience full of people last night, because you know it's going to work. It's going to really touch people.
I hope so.
So at this point, we are going to turn it over to audience questions. Ooh. If you have anything that you've been dying to ask Bowen Yang, and that gentleman over there has absolutely shot his hand all the way up.
That's a great question. Thank you for saying that. I feel like I remember starting out, I'm going to use SNL as an example. And I remember starting out, and I've only been very lucky there. But something that always bothered me was, and this is going to be an open secret. Anyone you've ever regarded as like famous or well known, or who like has like their ego together, like they are reading the comments. They are reading the comments. I promise you, they are reading the comments. And I am not immune to that myself. I've gotten so much better at it. And this kind of ties into the answer. But I remember early on at SNL, people would be like, "Oh, he's only able to play effeminate characters, or he's only able to play gay people, and there's no range, and what's going on there?" And it took me a second to realize that, for most people, for the people specifically saying that, it's like, oh, they think that like being effeminate is like a comedy character, that it's like a character trait, and it was so anathema to what I conceived as like just being like who I am, and how there's like things being built on top of that are not the focal point of the comedy, let's say. But then that's another person's problem, you know? Like, the thing that's also helped me kind of like divest from that opinion, or from what other people might think of you, is just to be like, there are things that you must know about yourself that other people cannot negotiate for you. And in terms of like the internet of it all, it's like, I know that's not your question, but I feel like it's tied in with this. I'm like, don't touch a hot stove. Why would you touch a hot stove? You know it's dangerous. You know it's bad for you. You know it'll hurt you. Don't get anywhere near it. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know. I think I've had a much better last like 2 years, a year and a half of just like not really caring, which is like kind of weird. It's weird that like our brains light up apparently the same way when we face like social rejection as it does as if you're on fire. It's like your brain is like, this is awful, this is dangerous, get out. And so the more you can like separate those circumstances, you're okay, it's okay, just because someone thinks you're a little too femme, like who the fuck cares? You know what I mean? I don't know. Anything to add?
I also remember like there was like a real turning point for you when you watched Perfect Blue.
Yes.
Like, do you guys know this film?
Do you guys know Perfect Blue? Okay, great. Satoshi Kon movie from the 90s. an inspired black swan, if that's meaningful to you guys. And it's about this person kind of like fighting the constructed version of herself that she reads. It's so ahead of its time. It was like mid 90s, but it was about the internet. It was about this pop star who transitions to television, but somehow she's reading a blog about her written through her voice that she did not start. And she has to like grapple with this persona that's been created, and that's what that movie is to me. It's like it's about you sort of like having to reckon with other people, what other people say about you, and how other people might perceive you, in spite of what you know is true about yourself. I'm being so
no, but it ends with the character. The last line is, "I know who I am."
Yeah, I'm the real thing.
I'm the real me.
Yeah,
and you do know who you are. Yeah. You know who you are. And like truly, other people's perceptions and projections are just that's their issue.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
It's hard
as a human.
Totally. There was a human. There was
human.
There was an interview with Terry Sweeney, who was the first gay cast member at SNL in the '80s, like during the height of AIDS, and he experienced some nonsense while he was at the show, and they interviewed him for SNL for the 50th anniversary recently. And he always held that, like, anytime people were homophobic, he was like, or anytime the audience was homophobic, he was like the first gay man on television. And anytime the audience was homophobic, he was like, even at that time, he was like, well, that's their problem. That's not me. I don't have to change anything about myself. And so I feel like that's the right model. It gives me a lot of hope, first of all, that Flair has been going on for 39 years, which makes me think, which makes me think that like queer cinema itself will like weather a lot of different storms. And I was talking to someone who does opera, and like he's my age, no, he's younger, and I was like, oh, like what do you love? What's your favorite thing about opera? And he was like, my favorite thing about opera is watching it and knowing that it's hundreds of years old, but it's still people acting like people. And it's still like, no matter, like through all the political turmoil and through all the social change that has happened since, we're still dealing with the same things in art. And like queer cinema will kind of will keep this character despite all of like the shit that's going on. And I don't know, I love a queer film because queerness is this experiential discovery. It's this thing that you arrive at, and that's kind of like the coolest thing. That's the most compelling thing in film for me, is watching someone go through that, and that's what I love about it. So in the original, it's very different from the original. The original is about a gay landlord, a gay landlord who has parents back in Taiwan, and he is not out to them, and so then he ends up staging the sham wedding with one of his tenants, and who's a woman. And then by the end of the film, like the last scene of the film is him saying goodbye to his parents at the airport in New York. And it's kind of resolved, but it's kind of not. Like they know that he's gay now, but they don't quite know how they feel about it. And it fades out on that sort of idea. And I saw that movie in college. I saw the original movie in college when I was still back in the closet. I'd come out in high school. I had been outed in high school and then went to conversion therapy and was back in the closet in college, and then met this one, and then and then we both.
And then went back in the closet because he was like, gay people suck.
But it was very resonant for me to watch it back then, because I was like, I was not in that place with my parents to like be honest with who I was around them, and then watching that movie sort of leave things in this unresolved place was really powerful. I love that what the movie does now is it checks in with how we as queer people feel about an institution like marriage. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. And I love that it's, for me, a personal check-in where I'm like, oh, my parents and I are in a place where I never thought we would be. And it's sort of a beautiful thing. I like that I have multiple sort of entry points into how much time has passed and how much has changed, both socially and personally. So. Gosh.
I have a secret Twitter.
You got a secret Twitter? Wow. All right. Are you talking about the sketch that we did? As it was like No More Slay. It was like, okay, yeah. That was an idea by Celeste Yim, my writing partner at SNL. Yes! Oh my God, I'm gonna tell them they got an applause break.
I know.
That's amazing.
That was the most excited that area got.
It was their idea. They were just like, I want to write something about how like, you know, because we fall into these verbal traps all the time where it's like, oh, slay, gag, period. Well,
Yeah.
It's like where it's our brains just don't work. Oh,
Work.
And it was like a self call-in. And you know, there was a lot of like discussion around like, you know, should it be in like a corporate setting, like where it's like a marketing meeting and like these people come in and say no more slay. But no, we just kind of and then it was like we arrived at like it's a brunch with friends and it should be more like personal and intimate. And then I'm trying to be less chronically online. Guys, have you heard of books? Oh my God.
Say more about that. It's hard,
Books
though.
are amazing. It's so hard.
It's hard. It's like, it's the hot stove thing for some reason. Or it's like when you're on a really high building and there's not a railing, you feel this weird pull to the side.
Sure.
It's like this, it's like a human thing. It's
Yeah.
like, you almost want to test your humanity out. Isn't that weird? It's
God.
like, wow, I wonder how susceptible I'm going to be if I see something nasty about myself. It's like, you sort of know it's gonna hurt you, but you kind of want to find out how much. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like kind of discovering this now that that's what it's about. But when I'm on a nasty scroll, like the voice in my head is like, stop, and I just don't. You don't read the Reddit anymore, though, which is good.
I don't read the Reddit. There's a lost culture Reddit, and I tend to stay
And it's
clear.
lovely, but sometimes it's just like, even in the loveliness, you can find
Of course.
ugliness, which is another reason why it's like, it's better to just not interact, because even the nicest thing your ugly little brain can do its ugly little thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm on a nasty scroll, you said? And
I'm on a nasty scroll. I'm on a nasty scroll. But this has been the opposite of nasty. It's been lovely. They're telling me we have to wrap, which bums me out because the energy coming from you guys is so beautiful. And I just want to thank you all so much for coming to honor my best friend, who's a star. And we love you. Thank you so much, BFI Flair. Enjoy.